Hey everybody, Logan from Popular Woodworking Magazine here. In a woodworking shop, a table saw gets a lot of attention, and I would probably say rightfully so. It's a powerful tool. It can do a lot of different things as well. But what if you don't have a table saw? You don't have the room for one, you don't have the budget to purchase one, or quite frankly, you just don't want one. Well, you can get a lot of similar results using a circular saw. The problem with circular saws is a lot of the times they're not terribly accurate. But thankfully, tool manufacturers have came to our aid, and they've made a lot of add-ons for a circular saw that do increase the accuracy and give you much better results. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and take a look at a handful of different ones and look at how they can help you get better results in your shop. Okay, so one trick that I picked up a long time ago from the construction industry is to make crosscuts with your circular saw using a speed square as a guide. And this works pretty well, and it works really well for construction when you need to make a good 90-degree cut. The problem with the speed square method is I wouldn't call it super accurate. I'd say if you're looking for plus or minus 1/8 of an inch on a cut, it's probably fine. But if you need to cut, let's say, a drawer front to size, it's probably not going to work terribly well. But luckily, Craig has just introduced their portable crosscut. And as you can see, this looks like a much larger version of the speed square. It has a 90-degree face and it has a 45-degree face. This allows you to make both 45-degree cuts and straight across 90-degree cuts. There are a couple things that are different about this than a standard speed square. The first is that this guy will not slide around on a board. It's nice and tight. There is a rubberized grip max material on there that keeps it pretty much where you put it, whereas a speed square is very easy to slide around and you kind of lose your setting that you had dialed in. The second thing that Craig has done to really increase accuracy, and this is one that I like and they've included it on a lot of their new cutting products, is they've included this guy. And this is a cut line indicator. So what you're going to do is calibrate this cut line indicator with your saw, and you'll put your saw base up to the guide, and then you'll position this so that it is right on the edge of your blade. Then you lock that guy down, and then when you make a mark to make a cut, you extend that cut line indicator, line it up with the mark you made, and then it retracts out of the way. Then it's completely clear of the blade. You can make your cut, and you know that your cut's going to end up exactly where you need it. Okay, there we go. Now you can see that the portable crosscut is very accurate. I can see my pencil mark just on the edge of that workpiece, and this is a great solution if you have to bring your saw to the work. But when the workpieces are small enough that you can bring them to a workstation, that's where this next product really shines. So this is the Crosscut Station from Craig. And this is designed to bring your workpiece to it. And as the name implies, this is meant to be more of a workstation for your circular saw. So there's two arms here that fold out. And they lock into place. And these are sized to hold longer workpieces. So you can slide them in, and they have support out here, out on the sides, and I really like that. And your circular saw rides on these two tracks, and these tracks are adjustable, so you can adjust them for whatever type of saw you have. So I'm going to tighten these ones up before we start making cuts. But a couple of the other features that I really like about this thing is there are pre-inscribed angles on the sides. So if you need to make a cut at 10 degrees, there's a 10-degree mark. There's also a 15, 20, clear up to 45-degree marks. You can use this little angle gauge here to set kind of a fence for yourself. And you just align it to the marks on the base. And then when you put your workpiece in there, it's held at exactly that angle that you set up. And I really like that. I also like that Craig has included a pair of these clamps. So we'll slide the angle gauge out of the way. Slide this clamp back in. That way, when you go to make a cut, you can put your workpiece in, then you can use these clamps to hold it in place. That keeps your hands plenty clear of the blade, and you make your cut. And then there's one other thing that I really like about this that I think lends itself really well to a pretty high degree of accuracy. And that's when you first set this up, you're going to calibrate it. And to do that, you're going to loosen up these tracks, tighten them along the base of your saw, and then you're going to make a cut. What that cut's going to do is it's going to cut through this back fence and this front fence, and it's going to leave you a little bit of a score mark down here in the center. What that does is that shows you exactly where your blade's going to ride. That way when you do make a mark, all you have to do is line that mark up with the kerf in the back side of the fence, and you can go and make your cut. And I really like that. There we go. Our workpiece is trimmed by 1 inch, and it's pretty clean cut, and I know it's extremely accurate. Now, one of the things I do use a circular saw for often in my shop is breaking down sheets of plywood. Even though I have a nice table saw and I use it for most things, breaking down plywood is not something I use it for hardly ever, because really I hate wrestling on a sheet that's 3/4 inch thick by 4 foot wide by 8 foot long. It just is it's a mess and is a disaster. So I use my circular saw for it. And Craig has introduced their straight edge guide. Let me show that to you. So while this might look like a standard straight edge guide, some of those features that I talked about on the portable Crosscut have been translated into this straight edge guide. And unlike other straight edge guides, this one is self-clamping, and the clamping mechanism on it works really well, and I really like using it. So this guy works by positioning it on a sheet of plywood, and then this foot back here is movable. And this just slides on a track underneath, so you can kind of position it. If you push on it real hard, it will cam into its clamping position, but with a light touch, you can slide this thing back and forth, and you can press it right up against the edge of your sheet that you're breaking down. And then, when you place your hand on top and your thumb underneath, you can pull the handle back here, and it's spring-loaded, and that spring-loaded action causes this movable foot to lock into place. So now this thing's locked on that sheet of plywood, which I really appreciate that fact. And just like the portable Crosscut, this guy has the cut line indicators, which I really like. So we'll calibrate this the same way that I calibrated that portable Crosscut by setting this right to the edge of my blade. Then I'll move this little collar on the backside, lock it in place, and then I can use that to position this straight edge guide in relation to the cut. Before I make my cut, I'm going to slide these guys out of the way so I don't nick them, and then you go ahead and make your cut. So if you've been around woodworking at all, I'm sure you've seen tables like this. This is the Craig ACS, or Adaptive Cutting System. And this kind of combines a circular saw with a different tool. So first, this is a track saw. So it's a circular saw, but instead of being freewheeling across whatever you're pushing it on, this is locked onto a track. And I like that because it's a linear cut. You're going to be guaranteed a straight cut. And to get even more accurate cuts, Craig and other manufacturers have added track saws like this with tables. And these tables help increase accuracy by a couple of ways. First, on the Craig table here, this guy has a series of dog holes in it. You can see those all over this Swiss cheese looking tabletop. But what that does is it allows you to take these little aluminum bench dogs and you can put them wherever you want. That way, when you go ahead to slide in a sheet good, you register it against, let's say these two back bench dogs, and then you register it against these. Then you're guaranteed that your cut is going to be square to these dog holes and these dog holes. And I like that because it's going to be a consistently square cut every time. And to create repeatable size parts, Craig's included these two sliding stops here. And you can see that there is a rule in here, and you can position these guys, let's say at 16 inches, and you can lock them down. And you'll position both of those, and then you'll give yourself a set of bench dogs over on the side to butt your workpiece up against. But now when you slide a piece of sheet good in here, you butt it up against the stops and up against the two bench dogs, and you'll get a 16-inch cut every single time. And I really like this for making projects like kitchen cabinets. I used this Kreg ACS to create kitchen cabinets for my wife's office. And I was able to knock out the entire set of cabinets very, very quickly by cutting all the parts the size right here. There's also a stop that slides in here that you can lock in place. Then you can cut stuff that's longer than what those plastic stops will go. And I really like that. If you need to cut a sheet of plywood in half, you can do that with this guy. And quite honestly, it's much easier to get a sheet of plywood into this. Then you drop down the hinges on the track saw to set it on top of the workpiece. It kind of holds it in place, and then you can make that cut. And a couple of the other features of the ACS that I really like that might not be apparent when you look at it are that with this track, there's an anti-chip strip on here, and that gives you a really good clean cut. And you have the ability to cut material that's up to 2 inches thick. This entire track will slide up on brackets on the side, so you can cut 2x material pretty easily. And in addition to cross-cutting hardwoods and softwoods, you can also rip hardwoods and softwoods with this guy. And that's right, you can use your circular saw or your track saw to rip hardwoods, which is really cool. Now, an ACS like this is on the more expensive side for a circular saw system, but I like the fact that it folds up really small, doesn't take up a whole lot of room in your shop, and when you're ready to use it, you can wheel out into the garage or into the driveway, set it up, and make a lot of cuts, then it will fold back up and go back into storage. So there we go. My goal is that if you don't have a table saw, don't feel like you can't complete any projects. With a couple of add-ons on a circular saw, you can really do quite a lot in your shop. And I just showed a couple of different add-ons today. There's a bunch of different ones for circular saws, from edge guides to the straight edge guides that I showed to new blades, stuff like that. If you're interested in any of the Kreg products that I showed today, I'll put links down in the description for those. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I will try to get to as many of them as we can. But thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next time.